Hello, BookTube, and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. These are the books that I've been reading this week. Right, so I know I say this a lot, but it's the same situation it often is. It's late at night here, I'm short on sleep, and I want to get through these as quickly as possible. So I'm going to do my best to keep things brief. And one of the reasons I'm a little bit short on sleep is because I've made 4 videos this past week. I'll link to all of them down in the description down below. And let's be honest, some of them were longer than maybe they should have been. You know me, once I get rambling, I just get rambling, and brevity is not my strong point. So having made 4 videos this week that were all too long, all the more reason to try and keep this short. So fingers crossed, let's see how I do. Well, I finished off The Incredible Hulk this week and reviewed it on this channel, and I'll link to my review in the description down below. So with The Incredible Hulk finished, that opened up a new slot for my comic book reading. So I got Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules, which I found at a used bookstall here in Saigon, and finished off in an afternoon, just a couple of hours, and reviewed it on this YouTube channel, which, now that that's done, that opened up yet another slot for my comic book reading. So I got this out of the school library, Superman Funeral for a Friend. Now, this is a reread of sorts. Some of these issues I actually got back when they were relatively new. I was getting into comic books round about this time. I also had this collection at one time. I don't remember if it was technically mine or my brother's, but it was in our shared collection. But that collection looked like this, the one that came out in the 90s. It wasn't the one that looked like this. And this one has some issues that it's expanded. It has a number of issues and tie-ins which weren't in the collection that I had 30 years ago. So mostly a reread. Yeah, boy, is this thing a mess. Some things to like in here, a lot of things to criticize. I have a feeling when I get around to reviewing this, whenever I finish it, I'll be talking about this a lot. So far, I'm 64 pages into it, out of about a total of 350 pages. Okay. Then finished off the Book of Leviticus and reviewed it on this channel. I'll link to that in the description down below. So after Leviticus comes Numbers, and I read the first 3 chapters of Numbers, up to Numbers 4. That was how many pages? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages in this Bible. And was reading it this afternoon, and it put me to sleep, almost literally. I was nodding off as I was reading it. Now, part of that is because I was short on sleep, but this is, when you think of the boring Old Testament, this is the classic stuff you would think of. It's the talking about the census of the tribe and the order of the tribe. So, for example, when the kinship of the sons of Benjamin had been established by clans and families, the names of all the males of 20 years and over fit to bear arms were singled out one by one. The total of these for the tribe of Benjamin was 35,400. When the kinship of the sons of Dan had been established by clans and families, the names of all the males of over 20 and over fit to bear arms were singled out one by one. The total of these for the tribe of Dan was 62,700. When the kinship of the sons of Asher had been established by clans and families, the names of all the males of 20 and over fit to bear arms, etc. Imagine 5 pages of that. Yeah, and in case anyone was wondering why they called it Numbers, the Book of Numbers, I think that's a fairly good indication. Three Kingdoms. I made good progress on this, I think. How many pages did I read? Actually, looking at the page count, it's not quite as much as I thought. a little under about 80 pages, from page 224 to 302. Read through a few chapters. I don't even know where to begin to start summarizing it. It's a mess, and it's a fun mess in the sense that there's some fun kind of getting into the complexity of it and trying to sort out all the betrayals and all the different alliances. But it is, yeah. I'm not going to attempt to summarize it here. I guess maybe when I finish volume 1, I'll try and recap some of the plot in a way that's comprehensible. There's a YouTube video that has like an animated summary of this book. And I watched, I think, like the first 20 minutes or so of it, which was up to the part of the book I am in now, just to kind of refresh myself of where all these alliances have been over the course of these 300 pages. If you like history and you like that stuff, there's an element of fascination with all this, and I am learning a lot, and I'm glad I'm reading it. But keeping track of everything is a little bit of hard work. And then, as I mentioned last week, this Cromwell book, The Mirror and the Light, is in many ways the opposite of the Three Kingdoms. In Three Kingdoms, so much happens in 10 pages. In this last book in the Cromwell trilogy, nothing happens. And I mean, there is stuff happening in actual history right now. There's that rebellion in the north of England that King Henry can't put down. But that's all dealt with as if it's kind of happening off to the sides. And then the main focus is just Cromwell and his family. He's introduced to his daughter, which he didn't know he had in here. Now, I cheat a little bit sometimes when I read historical fiction, is I will go to the author's note at the end and read that first, just to kind of see what the author has to say about their history. And the author's note says that these characters are fictional, both the girl's mother and the girl Cromwell's illegitimate daughter. So fair enough, this is historical fiction. But it's quite typical of this book that the real history is being kind of pushed off to the side for the portrait of family life of Cromwell, which is completely fictional here, and makes me again think that maybe I'm not the ideal audience for this type of book. I tend to gravitate towards historical fiction that's a bit more meat on it in terms of the historical events. This is not that. Yeah. I'm still enjoying the book. I'll leave it at that. And then for the professional development, teaching, speaking, I made some progress on that this week. I read from pages 48 to page 96, so finished one chapter on speaking competence, which was interesting. It talked about all the things that somebody has to do to be a competent speaker of English. It's more than knowing the vocabulary. It's more than knowing the grammar. It's more than knowing the pronunciation. They also have to know how to make requests. They have to manage they have to manage the interaction with somebody. They have to know how to structure their speech using discourse markers. Now this is things I already knew more or less, but it was interesting rereading it. And then the speech features grammar and pronunciation, which talked about the grammar of spoken English. Now, again, this is stuff I already know, kind of. I picked this up a little bit. What was the book? It's come up in a few books I've read, but the primary one was... Discourse Analysis for Language Teachers by Michael McCarthy. And they actually quote McCarthy or reference McCarthy a few times in this chapter. But the idea that spoken speech, the grammar of it, is very different than written grammar. And yet when we teach English as a second language, we teach the written grammar. So it's interesting. and some of this knowledge comes from the other book. But one of the things I've discovered while reading about this stuff is how little we know about the grammar of the spoken language. But if you were actually to make a recording of somebody and analyze the grammar, I suppose you could analyze the grammar that I'm speaking right now. What you typically find is, instead of complex sentences with subordinate clauses, it tends to be just clauses added to each other to just kind of add on information rather than embed it in a complex sentence. Now that I'm saying that, I'm trying to analyze what I'm saying at the same time. Am I using subordinate clauses? I'm not, am I? I'm just adding on clauses as I speak. But I can't speak and analyze my speech at the same time. I don't have the brain bandwidth for that. I think that's it. So that's been my reading for this week. Thank you very much, BookTube, and I will see you next week.